Hey, welcome back, everybody. I am Liz Scott, the CEO of Brighter Strategies, and I am here with one of my good friends and colleagues, Jennifer Till. And Jennifer, I was thinking about this. I think you and I have been working together for almost 2 decades now, or close to it.
Yep.
Well, and one of the things that I know about you is that you have a lot of high energy and you bring a lot of humor and joy to our clients. They love working with you. And you are definitely one of our sought after coaches. So, just to kick us off, can you share a fun fact about yourself, something that might surprise people or might shed a little light into who Jennifer Till is beyond, of course, your bio on our website?
Yeah. Well, thanks for inviting me into this conversation, Liz. And it's fun being the interviewee because I actually used to have a radio show, a terrestrial radio show that is grounded in much of what we're going to be talking about today. But the fun fact that I want to share is that I helped to develop and teach a program for stress reduction and kind of self-mastery at the maximum security women's prison here in Virginia. I don't know if you knew that.
I actually did know that, but I don't think most people would know that about you. And what a funny segue, since today's topic is all about stress reduction. So it's almost like we planned that. How funny. So I know you work with people across a wide range of different industries. What is the most common challenge that you are seeing people struggle with right now? What's happening in people's worlds?
Yeah. Not just because it's the title of what we're talking about today, and maybe it's why we're talking about this today, but I would say burnout is the biggest challenge at all levels of the organization.
Well, and I agree with you. I mean, it is the title for today, but I think it's also the thing that we're seeing a lot of. So when you think of burnout, everyone's got their own definition for things. So when you think of burnout and you're talking to clients, how would you describe that? How does that manifest for your clients?
Yeah, I think it's really important to say out loud that burnout is real and that it's not like a weakness or a failure. I really hope people can hear this. And it happens when stress becomes chronic and your coping system just can't keep up. And sometimes it erodes over time, sometimes it collapses all at once. And maybe folks can relate to some of these feelings. You might feel exhausted, or you might feel overwhelmed, or you might feel like something that used to be easy before feels really hard, or I'm taking everything personally. I'm like really sensitive, and maybe you just want to quit your job. So, and I think it has a number of contributing factors. I think it can be systemic, like there could be a workplace imbalance that certainly could, lead to burnout. I also think it's important to remember that in our world today, in the craziness of the world, and there's so much stress just in general. So our nervous systems are carrying that load, as well as what happens for us in our own personal lives and at work. And I also think it's definitely related to how we internally work with and frame our experience. So if it's okay, I'd like to kind of launch a little bit and talk a little bit about something we can work with around burnout. Is that okay?
Yeah, I'd love to hear that. I know stress and burnout are things that I deal with too.
Yeah. So I want to show you this visual that I have found really useful over the years. Let's pretend that my hand is your brain and my thumb represents what's called the amygdala. And that's the part of the brain it's kind of the fight, flight, freeze center. It's scanning for threats. It's basically set up to keep you alive. And it acts on on instinct and keeps us on high alert. The good news is we have a part of the brain called the prefrontal cortex, which is represented by my fingers coming down over the amygdala. And the prefrontal cortex mediates the amygdala. So the prefrontal cortex is responsible for decision, and this is important, and you'll stay with me, you'll understand why. It's important for decision making, planning, problem solving, and working memory. So the other news is that the amygdala has a superior priority in the brain because it's trying to keep us alive. So when the prefrontal, or excuse me, the amygdala um, thinks there's a threat, the prefrontal cortex goes offline. It's not available. So all that decision making and planning and problem solving, it's not available. And what happens when we're under stress over long periods of time, we flip our lids, is how this is referred to. And it's important to remember that, we can get stuck in this position as we're flipped. So we become hyper vigilant, and things that actually aren't threats kind of feel like they are threats.
Huh.
And the other news, the good news, is that we can learn to quiet the amygdala so that we're not always hyperactive. And that's something I work with clients on. And there's one more. Yeah, go ahead.
Well, so here's my question, right? I think we have all experienced that, like flip your lid when, you have this reaction to something. And if the world is anything like me, after I do that, I'm like, oh, I wish I hadn't just done that. Like, that's not me at my best self, right? So how do you, when you're working with people, how do you help? We can't go back and change. You can't unflip that lid in that situation. So given that we've got so many demanding environments, things coming at us, how do we deal with this in the real world?
It's a great question. I mean, because that is the question, isn't it? So there's a quote by a man by the name of Viktor Frankl that I absolutely love. Maybe you've heard it before. And it's between stimulus and response. So something happens and I react. There's a space. Something happens and then I react. In this space lies your power to choose your response. And in your response lies your freedom, basically. So what he is pointing at is critical to our happiness. That while we can't always, and maybe rarely, control the external environment that we live in, we can always retain what Viktor Frankl calls the last of human freedoms, which is the ability to choose our attitude, our response, regardless of what's happening around us. I mean, he survived the Holocaust and concentration camps. And so by having this perspective, it keeps me from being a victim, like flotsam and jetsam of whatever life is throwing at me. So
when you work with clients, then are you helping them access those different elements of choice, or how does that play out in coaching?
Yeah, so there's a lot of different, or there's a number of different tools that I help clients work with that help to kind of, it feels like it expands this space. So we become aware of the process. We become aware of our reactivity and what is the thought stream that's happening in my mind when Liz says this thing to me, and how is it impacting my body? And I like to use something called pushing the pause button. Like if I'm feeling reactive, I might say something to you like, hey, Liz, I'm not, it depends upon the relationship with the other person, but I'm feeling a little troubled by our conversation right now. I'd just like to take a step back for a few minutes, and I'm going to go get a cup, or you don't even have to say that. You can just say, hey, I really just need to run to the bathroom. I'll be right back. And it just gives a little time to breathe and think about, like, come off of that flipped lid position, bring the prefrontal cortex back down, and then come back to who I want to be in the world and not just react.
So it sounds like it's that, using your hand analogy, it's like that fight or flight response, and giving yourself a pause allows you to unflip that lid, to sort of take a break, step back, and then figure out, how do I want to deal with this situation?
Yeah, I think that's a great way to say it.
When you coach leaders, I'm sure they have their own, specific things that they want to work on. But if somebody came to you and said, I'm feeling really stressed and burned out, what does that look like? What would a breakthrough look like, or what would that person expect in a 3 or 6 month coaching engagement with you?
Okay. So, when so I think there's a couple of different questions in there. What does a breakthrough look like? It's not always like really obvious externally, but it's very
Mhm.
professional internally. And so I had a client who was feeling overwhelmed, just trying to stay super uber organized to try to, manage the stress that this was all creating, feeling like he wasn't hitting deadlines,
Yeah.
feeling like he's always trying to catch up. And so what I do is I kind of follow two tracks. The first track is to work with real work challenges, relationship challenges. Usually it's relationship challenges when we're
Hmm.
talking work challenges. And and I help them to uncover. I ask good questions, powerful questions, help them to uncover like what's really happening here. Why am I so triggered by this? And helping them to uncover solutions. I'll do role playing with them or reframing their thinking. And then the second track that is running at the same time is helping them identify and or remember what's important to them, who they want to be, especially when times get rough. And so, I'll work on values, helping them identify values. And that sounds kind of like, I don't know how much that really matters. But what I've found in almost all of my clients is it helps to give them purpose and meaning. I was thinking about some of the examples from real top level executives of large corporations and organizations: kindness, integrity, respect, empathy, courage. This is who a lot of us want to be, and we
Yeah.
just get thrown off center.
It's interesting as you were talking, it reminds me, I think it's a famous quote, but somebody said to me once that, so the question was, what is coaching? Is it giving somebody a fish or teaching them how to fish? And the answer was, no, it's reminding them that they already know how to fish.
Yeah.
And it sounds like that's what you're talking about. It's helping people ground and center themselves in their values and then figure out what options they have and how they want to show up. So,
Absolutely. Absolutely. I rarely give advice. Every
yeah.
once in a while, but I usually say, okay, this is advice and it's rare, so listen.
All right, well, here's one of your momentary times where you can give advice. So, if you were giving advice to a leader who's feeling stuck, what might you share with this person?
Yeah, again, I don't think I'm going to give advice, but I might give a pathway. It's an interesting question, but I think it requires an understanding of all the pieces that are leading up to feeling stuck. So usually we're in a thought loop that just keeps playing over and over and over again. We've got emotions happening. What is a deeper understanding of the external conditions? And once we start to understand these forces at play a little bit better, that space begins to open up between stimulus and response. And I think that if you find somebody that you trust who can gently challenge your thinking and help you maybe get off the spot or make a decision that's hard, that could help you gain perspective.
Well, I know you said that wasn't advice, but I think that was really good advice. So
Maybe I frame all of my advice as not advice.
So for anyone who is watching this thinking, gosh, Jennifer seems pretty cool, I'd love to have a conversation with her and maybe unpack some of their own stucks that they're feeling, what is the best way for someone to reach out to you, or what is a step that they can take?
Well, before I work with anyone, we have an exploratory meeting, and of course it's at no charge, to see if you feel like we're a good match and to see if hopefully you get something really meaningful out of this relationship rather than just a few new tools in your toolbox. And while I'm interested in helping people increase their performance, which is a natural byproduct of our working together, I'm really interested in supporting my client in managing their stress by uncovering freedom from habituated ways of thinking and reacting. And so, to answer your question directly, my bio is on writerstrategies.com. You can find me through the contact page. You know, you can get, or you can send an email to info@brighterstrategies.com and just say that you'd like to set up a meeting with me.
Okay, awesome. Well, Jennifer, as always, I have very much enjoyed our conversation. Any final words that you'd like to share?
Actually, I do. And this is from a recent client that shared this with me as we were wrapping up our coaching. At the start of the year, and now I'm going to read this. At the start of the year, I thought I was signing up for a professional coaching program to make me more efficient, more effective, and maybe more productive. And what I got in the end was more personal, a renewed sense of alignment between how I lead and how I live. I know that these aren't just workplace competencies, but life skills, and they'll serve me as I move throughout my life. There's more, but you know, it's always so meaningful to me when it's like people wake up. It's like their lives are reimagined and revitalized. So it's a privilege. It's a real privilege to work with someone in this role.
Thank you so much for sharing that. That was really, really beautiful. Thank you, Jennifer, for being here. And thank you all for popping in and listening. We'll see you next month.
Hope to hear from you.